You want to begin by adding gel to the edges and to the sides of the partings. Do not add gel to the full length of the hair. This will cause slippage and make the hair harder to braid. Beginning in the edge area, you want to separate your hair into 3 parts, which will be your 3 sections that you're going to use to begin the braid. Once you have your 3 sections separated, you want to begin doing your first stitch. Once we have our first stitch in place, we are going to hook on our first strand of yarn, which is going to be a single strand, onto our pointer finger. And then we are going to bring the top strand around the center strand, and we will end up on the right hand side. Once we're back on the right hand side, we are going to part out our second stitch, add it to the bottom strand, and bring our top strand around. Now that we are back on the left hand side, we are going to part out a stitch on this side, add it to the bottom strand, and then we are going to hook our yarn on our pointer finger again. This time we will use 2 strands of yarn. Once our yarn is connected, we are going to bring that top strand around, and we should be back on the right hand side. You're going to part out your section on the right hand side, add it to the bottom strand, and then bring that top strand around. Now we are back on the left hand side. You want to part out your next stitch, add it to your bottom strand, hook onto your pointer finger your next set of yarn, and bring your top strand around. Now we are back on the right hand side. We are not going to add any hair on the right hand side at all. You want to keep your add-ons on the same side. You part out your stitch, add it to the bottom, and bring your top strand around. If any strands of your yarn get tangled or go into one of the strands where it shouldn't be, you should be able to pull it apart very easily and continue with your braiding. Do not let the braid go. We are now going to add 4 strands of yarn, hooking it onto the pointer finger and then bringing our top strand around. You want to part out your stitch on the right hand side and add it to the bottom strand and bring your top strand around. You can now see the stitch braid is beginning to form. We are now back on the left, so we are going to part out our next stitch, add it to the bottom strand, and this time we are going to hook on 5 strands of yarn onto our pointer finger and bring our top strand around. We are back on the right, so we are going to part out our stitch, add it to our bottom strand, and bring our top strand around. Now that I have reached my desired thickness, I'm just going to part out my stitch, add it to the bottom strand, and bring my top strand around. Part out your next stitch, add it to the bottom strand, and bring your top strand around. Part out your next stitch on the opposite side, add it to the bottom strand, and bring your top strand around. Part out your next stitch on the opposite side, add it to the bottom strand, and bring your top strand around. We are going to continue making our stitches until we get to the point where we need to add more yarn. Adding more yarn will allow for the braid to have the same consistency all the way down. Okay, so I changed the angle so you guys can see what I'm doing from the back, and it is pretty much the same technique all the way down, adding hair on the left hand side and doing stitches on the right. So I hoop this onto my finger and I am parting out a section, adding it to the under section, which is here, bringing the top section around. Now I'm back on the left hand side. This is the upper piece that's going to come around. Hook the yarn onto your pointer finger. Take the top section and wrap it around. We're going to part out. Bring the top section around. We're going to part out on the left hand side. Add the yarn to our pointer finger. And bring this top section around. If you see any hoops or anything getting in the way of what you're doing, just straighten it out, rake it out with your fingers so that it'll be nice and smooth and you won't have any hoops in your braids. Parting out on the right, placing it underneath, wrapping the top section around. Now here I am not going to add any yarn because I have reached the desired thickness that I would like. So I'm just going to part a section out and wrap around the top section. Parting out on the right, wrapping around the top section, parting out on the left, and wrapping around. We are going to continue down to the nape. Parting out, adding it to the bottom, bringing around the top section. Parting out, adding it to the lower section, bringing around the top section. Parting out, adding it to the bottom section, bringing around the top section. Parting out, adding it to the bottom section, bringing it around. Parting out. Now on this section, we are going to add some strands of yarn. I'll move that to the side so you can see. As the pieces start getting shorter, you want to add on because that is what is going to make your braids start thinning out. And we want it to be the same consistency all the way down. So we're going to hook on to the pointer finger and bring this top section around. Add to the lower section on the right. Bring that top section around. Part out. Add it to the bottom section. Hook on to your pointer finger. Bring that top section around. Part out. Bring that top section around. We're not going to add any more pieces. We're just going to part out, add it to the lower section, and bring that top section around. And we are approaching the nape area. So we are going to just continue with the braiding. We are at the bottom. Now, what we're going to do here, it is the same technique, literally the same technique when you're trying to add length. So what we are going to do, since we still have our hands facing this way, we're going to hook on to the pointer finger. And bring that middle section over the right section. Now we're switching positions with our hands. And we're doing a regular plait and ending the braid. I'm going to show you how to add on with your fingers in this position You take your yarn, you go over top of the piece that's going to be in the middle section. Secure it with your right hand and go under the left section. And then you're going to bring your center section over your left section and continue to plait. And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to add one more piece. If little pieces get caught in, that's okay. Just pull them out. So again, you have your 3 sections. You're going to secure your strands with your right hand. The yarn should be on the left hand side. You go under the left section and then you just bring over that center section. And it should be a smooth transition. Now I'm just going to continue to plait this the rest of the way down. Now you're going to get your little shabby pieces. Sometimes, like, see how my yarn is sticking out here and here? You just want to cut those pieces.